this one will be applying a collection of techniques that we have learned to enable reordering of the columns in our application. Over here, you can see that we have this snapshot, and here, if you look closely to these columns that we are able to move items within the column. That's drag and drop. So we have this draggable over here, each of the task items that we have. Now, what we will be doing is we will be making our columns draggable as well, and the direction of drag will be horizontal. So here on top, you can see we have this whole area created as a droppable, and within that droppable area, we'll be having each of the columns as draggable items. So that way, we will be able to move columns around. So we can change the position of to do with in progress and vice versa. So to do that, first of all, we'll be making this container as droppable. So to do that, we have to include the droppable over here, and we'll be closing it just after the container. So once we have done that, we also have to ensure that we have included this in our index page. So on top here, where we have the drag drop context, we'll also have to make use of the droppable. So we'll be importing it basically from this library. And now that we have done that, let's go back to our code. So here we are setting the droppable ID as all columns. So that's the unique ID that we have given to our container area. The direction of drag drop will be horizontal, and the type over here we have set to column. Now, the next thing that we need to do over here is ensure that we have the provided over here. So that will be passed to the container basically. So here we will have provided, and then within the container itself, we'll be making use of the provided dot droppable props. So that goes over here as an attribute, and then we'll also have the ref attribute. So here we'll have provided dot inner ref, and then we will be having our container wrapped up, and we also need to provide the placeholder. So just where the container is ending, we will be making use of the placeholder, and finally after the container we'll be closing our block over here. So now the provided has been provided over here, as you can see in the code piece, and we have our container wrapped around it. Then we have our droppable getting closed, and after that we have our drag drop context. So let's save this now, and here we have our content back. But one thing that we have to take care of is that when we are moving things around, that's when we are dragging, it needs to understand whether we are dragging a column or we are dragging a task item. So here in our on drag end event, we have to specify what exactly is being dragged, whether it's column or a task item. And to identify it, we will have to introduce the type over here from the results. And once we have that, then we will be first of all checking whether it's a column or a task. Now, if it's going to be a column, then we will be rearranging the column order. And to do that, over here, we'll be checking the type. And if the type is column, we are doing the same drag and drop what we did with the task IDs. It's just now we are playing with the column order. And once that's done, it's going to return the rearranged column back to us on this on drag end completion. Now, once we have provided this, we now need to go back to our column component, and in our column component, we will be making few more changes. Like, first thing that we need to do is include the draggable over here so that we can make our columns draggable. And next over here, the container that we have, we need to wrap this around inside a draggable. So if I just wrap it over here, the first thing that we need to do is make use of the draggable with provided options. So here we'll be having our draggable, and if you notice, it has got the draggable ID. So we are providing the column ID, then we are providing the column index, and here we have the provided for at our disposal. And once the container is closed, we'll be closing the draggable as well over here. Now that we have done that, we also need to ensure that the index is being passed to this column component. And to identify that, what we will do is, here in our container in the index page, if you notice, this is what we are returning. So here we have key, column, task is drop disabled. Now we also need to ensure that we have the index available. So what we do is, when we are looping through the column order, you can see that we are already having the index over here, and the same index will then be passed as props to this component index as index. Now we have index also, and the same is now being used over here in our column component. We have the container and then draggable, and the same will then be provided over here in the container. So we'll be having the provided draggable props and ref as well. So here we'll be doing that, and next thing is the inner ref that we need to provide. So I can just go ahead over here and we'll copy this and put it over here, container as attribute. Let's save this now, and then we need to make this title as the drag handle. So we'll be wrapping this title of the column that we have, and we'll be providing this with this attribute so that it knows from which place it can be used. So now if you see, we have the hand cursor coming up, and here for the task we need to specify the type as task. Now if I go ahead and try drag and dropping the columns, you can see that I'm able to do that, and that's how we can move columns around.